Hello, grade sevens. Since we've been having our passion project presentations, we've missed some history time. So I thought we could do our lesson on Edpuzzle. So what I would like you to do, by the way, this is our first lesson on the Industrial Age, and we're going to talk about the Californian Gold Rush. So please make sure you have some notes or some paper for notes to write down on. At any point, if you need to pause this video to write something down, you can. If you just want to watch the video first and then rewatch it to take notes, that's all up to you. You can decide. So please write down today's date, title, and underline it. And here is our LO. So today we're going to talk about the Californian Gold Rush. And our learning objective is to examine the reasons why the Californian Gold Rush caused people to move west. So feel free to pause this if you need to write this down. So I have given you a worksheet like this, which I would like you to do. Normally that would have been our starter, so if you want to do that now, you can pause the video and work on it, or if you want to wait till afterwards, you can always do that. So please examine the picture closely. And you have 3 boxes which I'd like you to fill in, so just write down what you can learn from this source, just bullet points around here. Write as much as you can. So we're entering term 3 now. I know you guys are smart. So I don't want to see just one bullet point. I would like to see quite a few telling me what you can see in the source. Second thing I would like you to do is write down what you think is happening in this photograph. Write down, again, as much information and as much detail as possible. And then, what questions do you have about this picture? Write them in this third category here. Alrighty. So let's get right to it. So, please get this information into your notes, and we'll discuss it now. So, gold is discovered. In the early 1840s, California was seen just as a distant outpost that few Americans have seen. I'm just going to jump right now to a map to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So here's a map of what is today known as the United States. And the pink part is where most people lived. Not all of them are Americans at this point. So if you think about it, this area right here used to be 13 colonies. Now they're independent. And so people have started to move west. We have our Appalachian Mountains here. People have moved west. And this is like Chicago right here. So most people have not moved that far west. But if you look over here, so you can see some pink here, this is California. So to most Americans, California just was really, really far away. And many people did not live there. It was very difficult to get to, and no one lives in this white zone. So that is what California was like at the time. So no one lived there. It was very hard to get to, and most people sort of lived in the eastern part of what will eventually become the United States. Okay, so California was just distant. Not many people have even been there. One person did move out there, and that was John Stutter. Here's his picture for us. There he is, handsome guy. He was from Switzerland, and he moved in 1839. He was an emigrant, so I've put that word in bold. If you're not sure what it means, you should look it up. Different than an immigrant. And he decided to move to California, and he had a vision that he wanted to build a great empire, like a really amazing company where he could, get rich. So that is what he had planned. So he had sent some people to California to build just a simple sawmill on a river. And then some of the people he sent over, including James Marshall, found something when they got there. And here's a picture of that sawmill. You can still see it today. If you go, doesn't look like much, does it? And then we have someone standing there. I'm not sure if you can see that. Okay, what was found there? Well, one of the people who John Stutter had sent there was, in fact, James Marshall. There's his name. I'm going to switch right back. And James Marshall saw something. There was a gleam in the water as he was helping build the sawmill. Guess what it was? It was a huge chunk of gold. So they looked at it, they had it tested, and it was gold. So Stutter told everyone, you know what? We can't let anyone find out about it. Let's keep this a secret. Just between us. Of course, he was thinking, ooh, all this gold shall be mine. But the secret did get out. So make sure you get this stuff into your notes. Okay? Eventually, this news leaked out who could keep that a secret, and what followed a year later would be the Californian gold rush, and that is going to bring so many people from the East Coast to the West. You can imagine what it would be like if you hear, let's say you're working in a factory, you're working on a farm, and you hear, you know what, you can go west, you can go to California, and you can find gold. You can imagine exactly how many people would want to do that. We have lots of people who have moved to this part of the world in hopes of a better future. And when you hear, you know what, there's gold to be found, guess what? A lot of folks are going to make the journey west across this difficult terrain to find themselves some gold. And that's exactly what would happen. Okay, and how do people get west? Because this is going to be very difficult to get to. You're going to need a lot of money and supplies. Surprisingly, you think, well, I could do a nice little hike. Nope, that's going to take you a long time. So how did people get there? Well, let's talk about it. There are 3 ways you could get to California at the time. So there aren't any planes. There aren't any trains. There aren't any roads. It's going to be extremely difficult. So one way you could get there is by boat. So if we look at this map right here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So you live on the east coast of the United States, or what will eventually become the United States. And you can take a boat. Yes, this is the long way. Look at this. You have to go all the way around South America until you reach the west coast. So that is going to take a long time. 6 months about. So you can imagine that food isn't going to last very long. Water is going to be difficult to get to. It is going to be absolutely boring, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. So that doesn't sound like a great route, does it? But it was one way that people would travel west. Another option, which you might think would make more sense, is taking the Oregon Trail. So that is, you would go as far west as you could, and then you would kind of go off-road. You would need a wagon for sure. You would need animals to pull your wagon. You would need tons of supplies. You would have to do it in the early spring because you do not want to get caught in the middle of this landscape in the winter, because you're not going to last. So that meant you were there in the sweltering heat, in the heat of the summer. Again, there's not much food. Food is not going to last. There's no farms out there. There's certainly no Foster's Food Fair. So that was difficult. It was the cheapest option, but tons of people died en route, and not only of things like starvation, but of illnesses like cholera. So a lot of people died doing this option. So you have to be a pretty tough person if you decide to go for option 2. The third and the quickest option was through the Panama Canal. So, if you look at option one, you have to go all the way around South America. Oh my gosh, that is a long journey. There is a shortcut through here, through the Panama Canal. So there's a little canal right in Panama that your boat can go through. However, this was an expensive option, and again, because you're on open seas, you're going to get seasickness. Food's not going to last very long. You can get diseases like malaria and cholera, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. So think about, which option would you pick? If you had to pick one of these three, I can't even imagine it. If you said, I would definitely go for the overland trail, there's some things I still haven't told you. And I'll get to that in a second, but please make sure you have these three things in your notes. If you want to do a quick sketch, you think you might forget what that might look like, you can do a little quick sketch into your notebooks. Okay, so speaking of the Oregon Trail, many overland travelers were not prepared for the harshness of the journey, and many people's supplies ran out quickly, and things got expensive. So things like coffee, you know that these people are drinking their whiskey. Water is going to be very expensive. So if you did not have money, you cannot buy these things. Guess what? You're not going to make the journey. The routes also, you can see that they're just on the dirt. It got very dusty. There were going to be tons and tons of wagons going by. It just was not pleasant at all. Overnight, people would camp. They would have to dig their own toilets. Gross, can you imagine that? And that meant polluting water, and people would get diarrhea, and that caused illness, things like cholera and malaria. And guess what? A lot of people, unfortunately, died. Here is a quick just picture of what the trail looked like to California. You can see exactly how busy it got. So that is pretty crazy right there. Wow. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Please make sure you have the information that you've seen in this video in your notes. And next week, we will talk a bit more about the Californian Gold Rush.